Here with me now, Chris Cillizza is a NewsNation contributor, T.W. Regie, former communications aide to Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, Jessica Anderson, former budget official in the first Trump administration, and Kurt Bardella, NewsNation contributor, Democratic strategist. Hello to you all. Thanks for being here. So here's the way I kind of lay this one out. Democrats have a bit of a macro problem, right? Who are we? Where do we go? What do we stand for? Republicans have sort of questions on the micro side of things, which is how do we talk about this bill? Let's start with your side of the aisle, though, Kurt. What did you make of those comments from Wes Moore, Tim Walz over the weekend as well?
I mean, I get what they're trying to do. I just don't think it's going to work. Here's the thing. The Tim Walz Democrats should be meaner or whatever. Like, no, they don't, because they're never going to do it as well as Republicans. I am a former Republican. Let me tell you, we knew and know how.
You take issue to that?
I mean it as a compliment. That's not even an insult. It's like we're just better at the brawl, at the street fight, at the hand-to-hand combat element of politics and campaigns. Do not fight the terrain on their strong ground. You will never win a battle doing that. They need to stop talking about Republicans and Trump so damn much, honestly, and start talking about who they are, what we stand for, what our vision for the American public is, because so many people right now, when you ask, what does the Democratic Party stand for, they have no freaking clue.
When you said that, Jessica turned to me and gave me a wink. So what was that?
What I just heard was don't argue with Republicans about policy, about who's making life better for all Americans. Beat them in the tactics. I mean, that is not what the American people want to hear right now. This is why, unfortunately, the Democratic Party is spending, $20 million plus on how to talk to men. A group of people that they have villainized and called toxic masculine, show horses the last decade, and now all of a sudden they're going to reach them and trust them.
I can save you $20 million.
Come on.
All they got to do
and I could do it for $5.
I was going to say,
right? We haven't discussed it beforehand.
For $5 million, just buy a ticket to a country music concert or a WWE event. They're studied on.
I also think, all of this stuff with the Democratic Party, look, the reason that people like Trump, and I think the Democratic base struggles to understand this, is people believe, whether you think he is or not, people think he's authentic. They think he's comfortable in his own skin. They think because he says stuff that they think but won't say, they think he's like a real human. They don't love everything he says or does. And the thing about it is, it's not like be meaner, be nicer, be more liberal, be more conservative. You have to find people who can, and I don't think this is Tim Walz, sorry, Tim Walz, but who can authentically, not through a $20 million study, but just be able to talk to people. And amazingly, I will say this, having covered politics for a long time, you would think ability to talk to regular people would be in the... It is remarkably hard to find people who can talk to regular people.
I'm getting to your side in a second here, but I'll...
if you boil it down, it's be normal. Yeah. They have been this whole party's been co-opted by this far-left, youthful group that doesn't speak for the regular people, and all these other politicians are caught in between. And to channel Rick Pitino, Bill Clinton ain't walking through that door, Democrats. Barack Obama ain't walking through that door. And even if they did, they couldn't win in the modern Democratic Party. Until they get to the core of that, they won't win.
And by the way, Blake, just very quickly, why did Tim Walz wind up as the VP? Because he had one good moment. He said, these guys are just weird, right? And then he just ran. That was actually, I think that resonated because it was people know what weird is. You know what I mean? But I think he actually has the right message. I just think he's the wrong message.
So then if that's sort of like the macro issue for Democrats, where do they go from here? On the micro side for Republicans, I mean, my gosh, TW, when it's, we're all going to die at some point, why write legislation? Because we're all going to die. You're going to die, I'm going to die, we're all going to die. Look, what are we doing here?
Look, if we're going to be the adults when it comes to debt and deficits, we need to own it and take advantage. Nobody can have a serious argument about getting out of our debt and deficit crisis without addressing entitlements. Yep. Chris Christie did it miraculously way back in 2010 in a blue state like New Jersey by calling it like it is. Look, there are 3 million people, according to the CBO's numbers, on the rolls of Medicare who are there either illegally or inappropriately. Start there. 3 million people isn't nothing. They're there. They're not supposed to be on the rolls. Be honest with the American people. They will accept it if you're honest.
So here was Joni Ernst today being asked about all this.
I'm very compassionate, and you need to listen to the entire conversation.
Do you have any regrets
explain how to protect the most vulnerable?
And the elevator closed.
They're going to be cutting the ads already on this stuff.
Yes, and she is up for re-election, and I'm sure that is top of her mind. Was this conversation, this back and forth for President Trump's ears, or was it for the voters in Iowa? And I think that's, a question that only she can answer. But I don't think we actually have a problem defending the bill. I think the reality is I don't think so.
You told me you wanted to have the policy conversation with him. He didn't just wink at me, but he just made another facial expression.
And I don't think we have a problem defending the bill. I think Joni Ernst spoke out of turn. She apologized. She's moving on.
Well,
the bill
she didn't
passed the
apologize.
House.
I mean,
she did. She said she was
that wasn't
sorry.
a real
she didn't talk about
apology.
the
It was she invoked a tooth fairy.
It wasn't even a, I'm sorry for those who I've offended, which I've done. It was
all that was
I'm
missing
sorry
was
you're
I
gonna
am not
die.
a witch. I mean,
it was not
O'Donnell.
that. It was not that. It was not that. This is, okay, what are the facts of the bill? The big, beautiful bill, while it does not tackle and provide a balanced budget, it gives the framework to do that next. It does extend the tax cuts. It does go deep on dereg. It has all the populist things that President Trump wanted on no tax on tips or overtime. Now let's get it to the Senate. And senators have to come together, and that's where I think our problem is can they actually come together to pass this thing the way the House
You're seeing
did?
some of that play out.
I mean, I think the challenge for Republicans is you have a large swath of the Republican Party that's spent a lot of oxygen over years talking about we need to be fiscally responsible. We need to balance the budget. We need to address a deficit. It's irresponsible. It's a spend and spend, spend, spend. You might like the things that this bill spends things on, sure, but it still undermines that fiscal responsibility argument. And I don't think Republicans have figured out how to actually talk about that and own that.
$1.5 trillion.
Yeah, it cuts spending.
But you know
it's
what,
good.
though? But TW is right. Like, look, this is not a Republican or a Democratic thing. Until we address entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and a $1 trillion defense budget. Like, if you take those things off the table and say, well, we can't talk about those things, you're cutting at the very edges. And I know people don't like it, and I know it's not, quote-unquote, good politics, but we are going into a very bad place over time.
Well, I would just note, too, Social Security, we're talking about Medicaid, Social Security, and Medicare. The trust funds run dry in what, like 8, 9, 10 years, something like that?
I mean, it should be a bipartisan thing. It's not, because the politics are bad for both
Let's
sides.
do the small thing
Quick
first.
note, if George W. Bush was successful in his second term and passed Social Security reform, we wouldn't be in this position.
Yeah,
Got to leave it here. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill. By the way, tomorrow I'm going to chat with the Republican Senator.